Hello there. Hello there. We'll be getting started in just a couple minutes, doing a sound check and everything. We'll be getting started in just a couple minutes. A little feedback too. Let's see. Okay. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about some basic software tools and other kind of things we'll be using quite, for various challenges and problems when we're dealing with CTFs and security stuff in general. Uh, we'll mostly be going through the tools we've put into a virtual machine we've set up for everyone. So if you aren't running Linux, you can just fire that up and use that for your work. And actually, we will bring it in over here, and we can go back and forth. Okay. Yeah, let's get started. So, one of the big things that you kind of learn after spending a little time in the kind of cybersecurity space, and especially in dealing with CTFs, is that a lot of tasks are made a lot easier when you have the right tools. I remember I spent a few hours working on a fair game challenge that actually had a solution in like 20 seconds if you knew the right program. Uh, it was a learning experience, but I still would have, certainly enjoyed just solving it right away. And as they say, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And the who here is software. So we're going to go through a bunch of useful tools, things for dealing with text data. So for searching through text, reading it and generally making it easy to manage. Looking at media, things like images, video, and audio. We'll also be having to look at binaries, which are basically anything that isn't text, stuff that you can't read. So programs, most media, disk images, all that good stuff. There's a lot of good tooling for that, as well as some weird stuff. The kind of it's just the weird things, the Tim Allen stuff. So, if you don't already have the VM, which we linked that in the email we tossed out on the mailing list, although Roundcube broke our link. Hopefully, you can get there in the end. But if you didn't get that, go to tools.rpas.ec and there'll be a link for you to download a VM image. It's about 3 gigabytes, so it's not too much, but it'll take a little while to download. And you'll be running this under VirtualBox, which is a very popular free way to run VMs. So you'll grab it. You can just Google VirtualBox and you'll find it, but this link takes you there too. You'll just grab the program for your appropriate platform. After you download that, you're going to import the appliance, and if we pull this in here, you'll see we just go File, Import Appliance, and follow the procedure. That will give you a virtual machine. It should be called RPASec VM. And when you fire that up, you'll be presented with this. So this year it's a Fedora-based image. Don't have to worry about the specifics too much. But we got all kinds of stuff on here. We got text editors, we got tools for reverse engineering, we got all kinds of stuff on here. And we'll go through it. So if you haven't already gotten that downloaded, it'll take a couple minutes, but don't worry too much about it. This talk will be recorded, as all of our talks will be, and you'll be able to come back and check it out later. And if you have any questions, you run into any errors, drop something in the chat box and we'll have a look. And this is just more technical stuff, so move right along. So most of what we'll be doing today is going to be on the command line. Very elite and cool, as I think the kids say. So for those unfamiliar, this notation to recognize. Anything you see in this monospace text with a $ sign before it is a shell command. So for example, echo hello world. So if I open up a terminal here, I can say echo hello world, and it'll echo right back to us. I can list the current directory. I can do whatever I want there. So yeah, whenever you see $, that means this is a command you can run. And if you hadn't found it already, you can pop open a terminal just by hitting the Windows key, typing terminal, and there you go. There's no shortcut, sadly. So we prepared a set of demo files for this talk, just some things to poke with, to getting to grips with these tools, just to use them on. So the first thing we'll actually talk about is a wget. It just downloads a file. So I'm just going to say wget tools.rps.ec/toolsdemo.zip. And that'll give you a zip file, as we can see here. So yeah, tools.rps.ec/toolsdemo.zip. And you can then unpack that archive with the unzip command, unsurprisingly. And that should give you a whole bunch of files. You see here we got this new directory, we got all these things down here. And if you just do cd tools demo, you'll be in there. Give it a second to do that. So, the first thing we're going to have a look at here is text. Reading text files, manipulating text files, going through text files, looking for the needle in the haystack, that kind of thing. And beyond that, we also frequently want to take the output from some other commands or other tools and do something with it. Maybe filter it or summarize it or just, make it look prettier. So, first thing we have a look at is less. Less, the successor to more, is what we call a paginator. Basically, it's a tool that will take a large amount of text. So take a look at logs of text here. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there. If we say less logs of text, it'll paginate it. So it'll let us scroll through it, page up, page down, and generally read through it much more easily. So this is a whole lot of text here. It's 37,000 lines. So I wouldn't want to just dump that all into my terminal once. And that's where less makes our lives easier. So frequently, what you'll wind up doing, though, is say, I have some other command that puts out 10,000 lines of text, and I want to read that. Well, that's where we can pipe our output. So this is a really big thing for shells. It's one of the kind of killer features that makes them nice to work with. We don't just have to give input by typing and read output by looking at the terminal. We can also send it from one program to the next. So, for example, rev will reverse a file. So you can see this is fully backwards now. But again, this has filled my entire terminal up. It looks gross. So instead, I can say, I should hold on the screen a little longer. We can just say reverse and then pipe that into less. And so less will then display it for us. And again, let us kind of page through that at our leisure. And so we can do it. We can fire whatever we want to there. I can just echo some stuff into it. That works. You can say ls, pipe into there. That works. So that's like one of the big things that makes shells nice to work with. And you'll be using that quite a bit. So we've got 37,000 lines of output, but we want to find something in there. In this case, we're going to look for the word RPISec. That's where grep comes in, it's a regular expression search program that will take some pattern and look for it. So, for example, I can say grep RPISec logs at text, and there we go. We found that single line in the 37,000 long line file. And one thing to remember, I got this wrong all the time. It's grep the thing you're looking for, where to look, not the other way around. So we can search, and sometimes we also want to look through columns of data, and that's where we can use cut. Cut will take delimiters like commas or tabs or spaces and let you pull out a single column. So if I say something like this, I'll delimit on commas, ask for the fifth field, and then look through the CSV file. There we go. INTROSEC was here once again. And if I pick a different field, you'll see we got all the other columns in here. That's nice for dealing with, you're looking at some big output like this, and maybe you want to filter through it to actually find a single column. Cut comes in handy there. And as I said earlier, you can glue this stuff together. So we could say use EXIF tool to read all of the metadata from a file and pipe that into grep to look for something. Oops, go back. So this is very powerful, very flexible, and it's very nice to work with in general. You'll find yourself doing this quite a bit, and you can get some very monstrous shell commands going with 10 layers of pipes, stuff flying all over the place. And in addition to going from one program to the next, you can also send output to files and read data from files. So, for example, instead of piping the output of rev to like less or something, we can send it to a file with the kind of right caret. And similarly, we can read data from a file with the left caret. So putting those together, we can get some complicated things going. I'm going to read from the logs output to backwards, and the result will be reversed lines. So yeah, those are some basics of not only kind of manipulating text, but also just working in the shell. And at the end, we'll have some more resources for getting acquainted with the shell. So if you're completely new to this and this is still all frightening, don't sweat it. We'll have some good stuff for you. So that's reading and looking at text, but we also want to edit it. And basically anyone with some time in the field of computer science knows there's 1,000 text editors and 1,000 bitter feuds about text editors. So we chose to include Visual Studio Code, which is a rather popular text editor by the great evil Microsoft. If we pop this open, we can, make a file, type some stuff. You see it's installing stuff down here. It's a very full-featured text editor, and it's really an integrated development environment. It can do things like check your code syntax. I tell it, okay, this is Python, and it types in gibberish. It's going to say, let's see here. Got any problems yet? Oh, yeah. It'll let us do, function, hi. There we go. And it'll do the highlighting for us, and when you turn it on, you can get things like, error detection and function completion, all this useful stuff. So yeah, that's VS Code. And you can also just pop open the editor from wherever you are by running code with the file you want. So I can say code log.txt, and there we go. And it's a little slow because we got this giant menu here. Come back. There we are. And we can just scroll through that here. So you can use less, or you can use code, or whatever you'd like. I kind of went up picking whichever one feels more convenient at the time. Close you up. So yeah. So that's text. But we want to go beyond. This isn't the 1960s or whatever. We got rich content. We have images. We have audio. We have video. And now and then, these things come up in CTFs. You might have a challenge where there's something hidden in a file, or something where there's a secret code in an image, that kind of thing. So there's 1,000 text editors, and there's about 1 million image viewers. The one we happen to have here is the Eye of Gnome, which is a very ominous name. It's just EOG. So if I pull up this beautiful image here, we got the Area 51 raid underway. So that'll let us take a look at images. But what if I want to have a look at sound? That's where spec comes in. It's a handy little tool that lets you view the spectrogram of an audio file. So this is a real short bit of audio here, but you can see it. This shows you how intense different frequencies are. And a somewhat popular trick is writing stuff in the spectrogram. So that's always something I look for whenever I'm given a weird audio file. Now, if you want to actually, edit and manipulate media, that's where FFmpeg comes in. So FFmpeg it's basically a Swiss Army knife for audio, images, and video. So, for example, if I got a little video here called video.mp4, and I want to see what the frames like each individual frame. Well, I can read the file in and then tell it, okay, write the results to that. And it spits out a whole ton of stuff here. And if we go into that frames directory, it's full of frames. I remember there was one challenge, it was like a half a year ago, where it was the entire Ghidra instruction manual presented as a very slow scrolling video, and somewhere in it was a flag. And you basically had to extract all the frames, run text recognition on them, and actually locate the one you wanted. Another one was hours and hours of footage of people walking around a street, and then somewhere in there was a guy with a shirt that had a clue on it. It was kind of ridiculous stuff. And that's why it's kind of handy to have a little knowledge of these tools for manipulating media. So we can do all sorts of stuff. We can resize, rearrange, we can do all sorts of stuff. And there's also image magic, which is well known as two things. It is another Swiss Army knife for dealing with images, and it's effective for code execution. You might have heard of image tragic before. It was a very serious bug. But it lets us do something like, assemble a whole bunch of images into one big image. So again, useful tool for just kind of manipulating files and, doing work. And one thing you might see here is this little asterisk. So in a shell, that's called a glob star. And it basically means give me every single file that matches this pattern. So it'll give us frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, and so forth. Now, if you want to take a peek at an image, we can use something like Fe. And, we already mentioned I and GNOME, but Fe is it's a really lightweight little one that just lets you take a peek at an image. So I can say fe.dog.png. Oops. Dog.jpg, my bad. And there we go. We got a dog. So yeah, I like using Fe. And I think I installed it the last minute because we didn't have it on the machine. To edit images, a popular choice is the GNU image manipulation tool, or should be program, or GIMP. So we can use that to pop open an image. So let's have a look at that dog again, because there's something suspicious about that dog. Let's just pull you open here. So, there's some text up here. And if we go to kind of just enhance the image a little, the truth is revealed. INTROSEC was indeed here. That's a very popular kind of intro level sort of challenge. They'll hide something in an image. You gotta mess with the colors. And yes, I am very suspicious of this dog, Rob. I don't trust it. Why is it so cute? I don't know. The facts just don't add up. Earlier we used EXIF tool to pull metadata from images. So, for example, you remember that weird Area 51 photo? It had GPS coordinates in it. And if we just run EXIF tool on it, they'll be displayed. That's not the right one. You'll see it's got all this stuff in here. We got, actually, let's put this into less. There we go. So it's got the file name. We have all kinds of stuff in here. The interesting stuff is, maybe the user comment. INTROSEC was here. And then, we keep going around and, oh, hey, GPS coordinates. And I believe those will indeed take you to Area 51. Unfortunately, there's no Google Maps program, but that's what the internet is for. So, another fun little one, Mini Modem. It's a little program, it's mini even, for dealing with encoded audio. So you might have heard of, different ways that you transmit data over an audio line. Especially back in the days of dial-up internet, everything was audio. And modems would be what, translated that. So if I say, okay, I'll tell mini modem, okay, it's a 300 baud file, so 300 things per second, and let's just look at this weird thing, and oh, hey, this weird file, which we look at in the in spec, it's like, this weird stuff floating around. Looks like modern art to me, but we decode that, and it's full of the phrase "I love FSK." And indeed, this is a frequency shift keyed file. Fun reading if you go pull up Wikipedia. And that is indeed what I spent half a day working on, writing my own tool chain to decode that when a mini modem exists. So, yeah. It's handy. And one fun thing, which we would if we were doing this in person, we had all of us in CAI 4050, we can do is actually run it on two different computers and have them yell at each other. One computer will display sound, the other will record it, and you can actually transmit text over the air. With some loss of data sometimes when using cheap laptop speakers, but regardless, it's quite fun. And it's a neat little party trick, I think. So that was media, images, audio, video, all that fun stuff. We're going to move on to the unfun stuff, binary files. So this is actually a really broad topic. It's really just anything that isn't human readable. And so this is things like, images. You can't, if I open up an image in VS Code, I can't really read this. It's a little bit weird looking. Programs, similarly, are not human readable, and compressed files are also just incomprehensible blobs of data. So, when presented with a new file, the first thing we want to do is say, what is it? And file is a very nice way to do that. So it basically looks for, magic numbers, things at the start of a file that tell you what it is. So if I just clear the screen here, I say, okay, file, dog. Okay, it's a JPEG. Logs. ASCII text with very long lines. Video to MP4. Edit an MP4. What do you know? Crack me. That's an ELF, or an executable file. So that's a nice thing to do, just you get a file, you know what it is, you run file on it. But that doesn't tell you the whole story. Binwalk frequently does. So binwalk, or binary walk, will let you very carefully examine what a binary contains. It's very useful for things like you dump the firmware from a device. You need to it's going to be a file system and some executable code, and you want to pick that all apart. Binwalk can do that for you. So I could say, for example, binwalk on logs, and it's going to see a whole ton of stuff here. It's like, I found this Linux path, I found all this cool stuff, but if I run it on, say, this disk image, okay, look at that. It tells us this is a Linux exe file system with 10,000 blocks, this very specific size. It's got all this, useful stuff on it. And then what if I run it on, that dog image? Check that out. It's the JPEG header and then the image data. So binwalk will let us actually take a look inside and see what's going on in there. It can also extract stuff. So if we say run binwalk dd and then .star to tell it extract everything you find, and we run it on that disk, we can then go into this folder and Let's see what we have here. Yeah, it's our file system. That's not too exciting. We unpacked the single thing that binary contained. So unsurprisingly, all it contained was itself. But if we're dealing with something more complicated, then it can be a little more fun. So, for example, we had two dog images here. We had dog, which was 110 kilobytes, and dog deluxe, 138 kilobytes. Where did those extra 28 kilobytes come from? Well, let's look. So we can say binwalk dog.jpg. And actually, one thing I'm going to do for y'all real quick is increase the font size a little here, just in case it's difficult for y'all to see. Where did you go? Oh, there you are. Let's make you a little bigger. There we go. Okay, anyway. So, dog was just, the header and the data. That made sense. But let's look at dog deluxe. It's the image data, and then more image data. A little suspicious. So, if we run that command again, do dog deluxe, and it's going to make a folder for us right here. And one little tip with the shell: if you hit tab, it'll autocomplete for you. So it's a lot faster. We go in there. Let's see what's going on again. You get 3 files. And I can ask what they are. And they're named after where they're found in the binary. So it'll be like 0, 1E, 1B60, weird names. But let's see. So this 1B65 is a JPEG, so it's tool time. So there you go. That's a real simple kind of, and all I did to make that was I concatenated 2 files. I just took the first image and the second image and just stuck them together. And an image viewer will see the first file, because again, if we go back and we look at that dog in Fed, it's like, oh, just a dog, nothing weird here. It's a dog. Because it doesn't have any reason to keep going. But there is that data hidden at the end, hidden off the end of where the image should be terminated. So that's kind of whenever you get a weird file, like what I do is I run file on it, and then I bin walk it, and just see what's going on in there. Very useful pair. Maybe you want to look at files directly, but again, they're binary data. So one thing you can do is use XXD or hexdump or any of the other, identical tools. And all this will do is, actually, I'll have a file called hex.bin. I'll hexdump the crackme. That dumps out a whole bunch of hexadecimal data, as well as the kind of human readable form, if that's possible. So we got all this weird stuff in here. I don't know what's going on here. But by the end of the semester, I think we will. But we won't worry about that for now. But yeah, it's a nice thing. I like to use it sometimes to look for patterns. Like, if there's a file that might have something interesting in it, I'll kind of page around and see if there's anything interesting looking. It's it's going by feel at that point. But it's, pretty handy. And again, pipe into less. Make it a lot easier to work with. Now, you see, there was some data we could read in that file. It wasn't all nonsense. And strings will help us find those human-readable strings. So if I say strings like crackme, it's going to find just the things that are decoded to valid text. And you see here we got libc.so.6. That looks weird, ooh, what's going on there? And I think that's a flag. And yeah, that's a spoiler. Now look at that. Just pop the strings out, search through them, see if you got anything interesting going on. And so strings is another one of those things you kind of just launch but the moment you get something, you just run strings on it, see what happens. And get some useful stuff out. So, that kind of wraps up the stuff we're showcasing for today. There's a lot more stuff on this machine, like Ghidra for reverse engineering and burp suite for intercepting network traffic, but we'll be getting into that in due time. This is kind of just the stuff that I think you use every day, actually. The stuff for messing with images, for reading text, all that good stuff. And there is no exhaustive list of useful tools. There's just too many of them. And there's also too many opinions about them to not have it devolve into a fight. But, here's some cool stuff. So the first year or so I was doing CTF stuff, I would just Google, I just go like, base 64 decode online, no virus, free, that felt a bit silly. And so a really useful tool I found recently is called CyberChef. The CyberChef is it's a Swiss Army knife again. It lets us do stuff to data. So I can say, "Hello world," and let's put it into hexadecimal, and let's reverse it. I don't know, why not? And you can see here it does the stuff for us. And let's go from hex, and now it's nonsense because I reversed it. But if I get rid of that, hello world pops out. So, very useful tool there. I strongly suggest giving that a look. It has a lot of stuff in it. You can do things like encrypt data. You can, like I was using it to mess around with, signed tokens, like all this good stuff. I think it can do like Roman numeral. It's a big grab bag. Very useful. Although oftentimes there is some command line equivalents, like base 64. And this is less of a tool and more of a resource. But if you're kind of new to working in the shell, I highly recommend checking out Over the Wire's Bandit Challenge. So Over the Wire, it's basically host a variety of self-paced war games. All these things down here. Each one of them is, ooh, that's scary. Each one of them kind of tests different skills. And these things down here get pretty spooky. But Bandit, it's kind of an introductory series of little challenges that'll help you get to grips with the shells. Kind of how to work in a Linux system, how to do basic stuff. And the way it works is you complete each level to find the password to the next level. We go through and there's a whole bunch of levels here, all up to level 34. And I definitely recommend checking that out. That about wraps up what we had to talk about today. This Friday, we're going to be going through the introductory challenges in Fair Game, which is our in-house beginner-friendly CTF. If I pop that open here, I think I need to log in. No, I don't. I got to log into the challenges. Forget my password. But it's a pile of challenges that covers various topics, some of which we've already kind of covered here today, others of which we'll be getting into in the next few weeks. So I suggest checking it out, and of course, popping into our Slack to ask if you have any problems. Or just if you're curious about something, drop us a line. That about wraps it up. So again, check out tools.rps.ec if you'd like to have a look at, like things like links to our Slack, our mailing list, get a link to Fair Game, download the Tools VM, whatever you need. Check it out there. And we're also going to have our slides linked here. So you see right now we have today's talk linked, and we're going to put up the link to last week's talk. So you'll be able to come back here and check those out. And I think we'll also be putting links to the recorded VODs of each talk on here, so you can find them nice and easily. So yeah, I hope to see all of you on Slack, and hope to see you next Friday. So thanks for stopping by.